welcome to episode 26 of Body, the Cloud9 Fancast. Today we'll be discussing Cloud9's unfortunate end of their undefeated streak. We'll be discussing how they've been playing, where they can improve, and all that other good stuff. Kind of a short episode today, really. Anyway, I'm your host Havokpus, and today I'm joined by...
Frozencreek, I'm sorry I wasn't here last week. Probably for the best because I had a lot of strong words to say, but unfortunately they've built up. So I'm sorry if I'm an asshole today.
And I'm Ian. I'm back again. Woohoo! Yay! Happiness.
The sunny side of this coin, it seems.
Fireworks.
Yes.
Mew.
So two things. One, Havokpus was late because he was eating dinner. So what were you eating for dinner?
I was having chicken.
Okay.
It was good
Ooh.
chicken.
Good chicken. Was it like? Did you make it yourself,
My
or did
dad
you get
grilled
it
it.
from a? Ooh, the best.
Nice. I love hot grills.
Sneaky
Now who's
is
the
my
one
favorite
making
hot
bad
grill.
puns?
Okay, so two things. Crap. Sorry. Second thing. We've been working with a couple TSM fans to make a podcast for them. If you know any TSM fans, then send them on over to our Team Solo Mid, where Just Tilt Them, I believe it is Just Tilt Them or Just Tilt Them, posts their podcast each weekly. We've been working close with them to get them going. So I hope you're not a TSM fan, or that you don't have any friends who are. But if you do, then that is the place to go.
I will say they are a bunch of really nice guys. So if you do want to give them a listen, please do. But listen to us
Yeah,
first. Listen to us
the guys
first.
that do the TSM podcast are great. They're all great guys.
I'll get their Twitter afterwards too. I'll look it up. But yeah, continue on.
All right. Before we get into what will probably be a lot of words being said, I should give our listeners a fantasy update just in case they care at this point. I don't know. Frozen, congratulations, remains undefeated and has delivered Trey his first loss of the season.
Yeah, I got lucky this week since Cloud9 and FlyQuest shit the bed, and that's who his team is based off of. So
Yeah.
Feels bad, man.
Feels bad. Pi and Ian are tied for last place with only one win.
Woo!
So
I haven't even changed my roster since I drafted it, so I'm not surprised.
it's a race to the bottom, to be honest. That's what it is now, because Frozencreek is so ahead. No one can beat him at this point, I don't think.
no, I think I finally passed Trey for most points total, but I'm not unbeatable. I almost lost a week or two ago to Pi Magic Man when X Special scored me 6
Wait,
points or
Who
something.
do I even have on my fantasy team right now?
God damn it.
No.
We'll come back to it. I also have the Twitter for the TSM. It's at just tilt So JUSTTILTEM.
Is that all
If
lowercase?
you listen, let them know. No,
Case is
it
important.
does it matter? Oh, capital JUST, capital TILT, capital EM, and then feel free to flame them in a friendly way.
Yes. Banter is always great if it's friendly. That way no one's feelings are hurt. But before... Well, I guess we should do a little quick rundown of Cloud9's unfortunate losses this week before we really get into the nitty-gritty, I guess you would say, of what we're going to be talking about. So, what do you guys think happened during the TSM and Phoenix 1 games? If you want to give just like a little quick rundown of your thoughts.
Frozen, you can go first.
I don't want to go first, but okay, so what's so frustrating about it is that coming into the Team Liquid FlyQuest week, like, we knew that there were things that weren't clicking. And early game was one of them. Like, we knew that it just wasn't going fluidly. We knew that it was good enough. Our first to three tower percentage rate was one of the highest in the league up until last week. And once we played Team Liquid, like, there were obvious errors and things that weren't working for the team. And I was really hoping that we would see some kind of improvement going into this week against TSM and Phoenix One, our hardest week yet. But it looks like we almost devolved. There was a time where Impact got a Flame Horizon in Game 2. In Game 3, he was really bad. I mean, the Rumble pick I don't think was a bad pick, but it just the way he played it, the way he played into Rumble the game before was just really, really, really questionable, and it resulted in him getting benched against Phoenix One. My biggest complaint was when I watched Game 3 that there just seemed to be a lot of mechanical errors in the team fight that kind of flipped the game around. Smoothie missed a redemption, and I think we blew just 2 ultimates just for no reason, and it ended up in TSM just taking it away from us. So I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't pick up a lot of the mistakes that were glaringly obvious against Team Liquid, because Team Liquid is bad. Like, didn't they get beat by Envy this past week?
Yep.
No, that was Echo Fox.
Oh, Echo.
It wasn't in the
okay.
past week, but I thought they have beaten or gotten beat by Envy. I'm pretty sure.
So, almost everyone has beaten Team Liquid, to be honest.
Yeah. And if not for a sneaky a Baron steal with a W on Jin, we very well could have lost against Team Liquids. So I don't care that Ray played 2 of the games, because honestly I don't, at this point, based on the past 2 weeks, I don't think Ray is that much, if any, worse than Impact. But I won't spout too much more negativity, just because I guess it happened at the best time. For some reason there was a random IEM break. It's probably 2 weeks solely so production can fuck it up for 4 days in a row and still have a full week to fix it.
Not even those production delays can save G2 from choking at international events.
God, dude, oh my God, I didn't have time to watch the games because I have classes today. But whenever I went on Reddit to look at the post-game threads, I was like, oh, look, the G2 thread. This team is actually, like, they look really good. And I open the thread and I see they lost to fucking Flash Wolves. And I'm like, ugh.
Yeah,
why?
It's not a bad team.
I went out to get my haircut.
Yes, but G2.
I went out to get my haircut, and then when I came back, I looked on Reddit, and that was like one of the top threads. And I'm like, oh, they had to have choked, otherwise it wouldn't have gotten this many upvotes. And of course, wouldn't you know it? Oh man, they didn't even need a spoiler tag.
Right, well, Flash Wolves is not a bad team.
Oh, they're actually a really good team. I agree.
But they're a solid team.
They were really
Granted,
competitive at Worlds, so.
G2 is actually the biggest disappointment on an international stage. But Unicorns won, obviously, because they're the best. But, okay, going back. So there was a 2-week break where hopefully a Reaper who hasn't let us down yet, except between that Team Liquid weekend and this past weekend, he has 2 weeks to go back and smack the guys as silly, because we've just been kind of a mess. I think we were second to last in first tower percentage, which is pretty bad considering that we're supposed to be this really good laning team, because we brought in Kane, and Reaper helped us make up this super good laning phases and stuff with Impact and Jensen and stuff, and it hasn't shown. Like, we've digressed so much, but there's a 2-week break. We've lost our games. It's a good time to refocus. It's not a really long break, so I'll end up there because now I'm just rambling.
Yeah, you're kind of going on a rant here. Gonna have to put in.
I told you it was coming.
Pump the brakes, put in the stop sign.
I told you this was coming, and it could have been so much worse.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to add to that. You touched on basically every point that I had in mind to talk about. Especially, Impact really did not look good over the course of the entire weekend. It was really bad. He got caught out a lot on game 3 versus TSM. His rumble was really really bad. He got out farmed, out laned. His ultimates weren't very good. It was just it looked really bad. And then in
Oh yeah,
the
don't
P1
even
series,
don't even talk about
there's
those Gragas ultimates.
yeah,
Those were just bad.
in the
They
P1
were
series it
dumb.
was the same story. Everything just kind of fell apart. And then also I feel like I don't know if this is so much of obviously C9's lanes didn't look very good, but their late game didn't look as strong as we're used to seeing it, and I don't know if that is because of other teams catching up and getting that coordination in the late game that C9 had just basically had from the beginning, or whether it's C9 faltering a bit. I think we'll have to wait and see a little bit, like a few more games, see if that's true or whether C9 just kind of had a bad week. But I'm really anxious to see C9 play again because they didn't look very good this weekend, and I want to say that I'm confident in them that they can bounce back strong, but I I have that like really bad feeling in the back of my head that things there's a possibility that things might not go very well, but I don't think that's going to happen. That's just a thought in the back of my head. So that's really all I have to say for that.
No, yeah, good points, good points. I think to play a little bit of devil's advocate before we move on to talk about kind of how we as a team have been playing in general, a couple points is one, maybe they aren't really playing as well because they don't want to show a lot of stuff for playoffs. That could be the case. That seems very unlikely considering it's against TSM and P1. Darn it, what was the other thing? I can't remember. Oh well. Uh, yeah. So, let's move on. So, how have we been playing so far? I think breaking it down from early, mid, and late game, I would say uh, pick and ban has been kind of weird lately. That might be because of 7.3. Last week was the first time we were on that patch, so we were probably having to struggle with, oh well, red side has more picking power now. Before it used to be just Rengar, LeBlanc, Camille. Now they have more leeway into how they influence the draft, so maybe we're having to adjust to that a bit. In terms of early game, completely non-existent. I think that's going to be a really big topic of discussion for us because we just look so overconfident in our play, just in saying, oh well, of course we'll do fine in lane. We have Impact and Jensen and Sneaky and Smoothie. We don't really need an early game, but you know it's proving time and time again now. You need an early game plan in order to snowball and bring yourself to the mid and late games in a better position. And since we don't have that, we really struggle with it. In terms of mid game, I think we're fine. We do a really good job of managing the side minion waves and map rotations. Our vision is alright. And late game, we look like a really, really strong, just well put together team. You know, we're always coordinating fights, we're always contesting the right objectives, and doing all this other stuff. But in the early game, we look like such a different team. So I want to ask you, Frozen, should we abandon this lane focused strategy for the early game? Should we, you know, get Jensen to roam more, even though he's not really a roaming player? Should we be more dynamic around the map and not just stick to our lanes for as long as possible?
Okay, so looking, I'm not just gonna look at statistics for this one, but Cloud9 has the eighth. I'm gonna start there. Cloud9 has the eighth lowest early game rating, which is based off of a couple conditions at 15 minutes that are average to a chance of winning, if I read the statistic correctly. So it accounts towers, dragons, and kills and deaths, I believe, and maybe a couple of other things. at 50 minutes and then like guesses what our chances of winning are, and we're eighth in that right now. And then there's also a mid to late game rating, which is I believe our win percentage minus our early game rating, and we're eighth in early game rating, and we're actually first in mid to late game rating too. So that's saying that our early game is shit and that our late game is really good, which I think is an indication of how we're doing. For me, I think that what it could be is something is just isn't clicking with this roster. Like our lane efficiency is really good, which is how many lane minions we're picking up compared to the other teams. So we have the highest lane efficiency in the league right now. So we're obviously controlling waves well, we're farming well, but we just seem lost if if there aren't towers down and we can't flank them with an impact. Um,
Teleport.
yeah, teleport or something. So our goal difference at 10 is actually negative as a team right now when we were one of the higher ones earlier in the split. But one of the most worrying things for me so far is that in game 2, I think it was around 11 minutes, if you pause it and then you look at the map, we had like 5 wards on the map. One was behind us, 2 of them were in lane bushes, and one was like a control ward on top side. While TSM had 3 or 4 control wards in a river, controlling vision in that entire route, so they have free access to get in behind us and dive whomever they want with as many people as they want, and you could see them directing plays and setting up plays based around that. And we didn't do enough to control river vision, and we didn't do enough to get control of it either, or take away their control by taking out their control wards. And that's something that I've seen us do a lot of. And we never seemed to set up the best teleport play, which is a ward at Krugs or in like Tribush, and then just sending top lane or down there in 4-manning bot. So I won't talk too much. I'll let
let Ian have some room
Ian
to
talk. I do have one more thing I do want to add at some point though.
All right, we'll probably be able to get around to it, but yeah, let Ian kind of touch on. Ian, do you have any thoughts on this early game, late game strategy that we're kind of going here?
Well, I think in terms of early game, I feel like it's not so much that C9 is relying on their lanes to basically not lose. I think that at least from what it feels like. I'm not sure how it goes with the actual players and they're communicating and all that, of course. But to me, it feels like C9 is more of a team that just says we're okay with our lanes losing. We just won't lose so bad that we can't recover. And their overconfidence seems to be more in their late and mid game, where it's they're confident enough in their late and mid game to say that they're okay with losing their lanes, because they know that their macro play and their objective calls and all that can outplay the other team and get them that advantage back that they lost in the early game. But I think what we might be seeing now is teams are not only still winning the early game, because C9's early game hasn't really improved. If anything, it's looked worse. They're also starting to match C9 in mid and late game shot calling. Maybe not match, but they're catching up. We saw that in the TSM series, where TSM didn't look as discoordinated as they usually do in the late game. And so the early game advantages they got snowballed enough into a lead that they were able to leverage that and end up winning the game, even though C9 still had a somewhat better shot calling. They still TSM shot calling got up to par, was not up to par, but to a level where it could compete with C9 in the late game. And so it was, we kind of saw C9 fumble there because they couldn't get back that advantage that they lost like they were so used to doing. And whether that was because they were individually playing lackluster or because it was actually a communication problem or because the other teams were catching up, we have yet to really find that out, obviously, because it's only been one weekend. But that's kind of my take on it. I feel like other teams may be catching up to C9 to the point where C9 can't rely on their late game alone to carry them through to victory.
As a follow-up question for you, you mentioned snowballing. It seems that in both cases we either can't get the ball rolling enough to have a good early game and to really snowball, or in the opposite case where we saw in both game 2s of TSM and Phoenix 1, Contracts was able to actually give us a lead and break open the game for us. No, not TSM game 2, TSM game 3, but Phoenix 1 game 2. There's a lot of numbers. But Contracts was able to actually give us a small gold lead and actually kind of get the ball rolling a bit and getting a lot of kills and getting himself, in kind of a big place early on. But then we weren't able to really do anything with that. Is that due to Contracts just kind of being a rookie and he's not able to really gel with the team, or is it more of a unit problem and we just can't seem to know what to do with the gold lead when it's presented to us?
Well, thinking about it that way, I want to say that it is probably more of a team problem, not necessarily a Contracts problem, because Contracts, obviously, he has knowledge of what to do in the early game because he got us those leads. But when it comes to transitioning those leads, that is a team effort, because that is, hey guys, I have a lead in my lane now, because you can't get every single lane ahead. That just doesn't happen in pro play. So, unless you're just having an amazing game for some reason, but that rarely ever happens. But usually it's one lane, maybe two gets ahead. And so say that Jensen gets a lead. It is now up to the team and not just Contracts to say, how do we extend this lead and what do we need to do? Say, okay, Jensen takes his lead, brings it bot lane, and uses that to snowball and get more kills and get towers and dragons and all that. And that's how you get an early game lead. And I really feel like that's not something that Contracts alone that is responsible for. That's something that the entire team has to contribute to, specifically the winning lane. And I feel like C9 doesn't really do that. They say, okay, we have a winning lane. We did it, guys. We won the early game. Top lane has a kill. We did it. Whoop-de-doo. And they don't try and transition. They don't try and snowball the lead. They just kind of are okay with sitting on it. And I think that might be partially because of their thinking of, okay, yeah, we're fine. We're not behind. It's fine to play passively for 30 minutes and just stall it out. But that's not how you have to play. You have to play in the mindset of, how can we use this lead we have to get a bigger lead? Because that's how League of Legends works. League of Legends revolves around snowballing. And if you can't snowball the leads you have, then you're not going to be able to win games. Like, that's just how it is. Unless you are a special case, and which kind of C9 is or was, where you are just so good at out-rotating the enemy team that you can bypass that to an extent. So that's really, I want to see C9 try and be more proactive in the early game with the leads that they can manage to get. And I think that'll really solve a lot of problems for them.
No, yeah, I completely agree. Moving on to kind of talking about room for improvement, I definitely think that proactive play in the early game is something that we definitely need to work on. I think mid and jungle are probably the two biggest roles that can really impact the game in the early stages, because they have a lot of roaming potential. So I think that I'd really like to see Jensen roaming more, Contracts and Jensen working together to help top or help bottom, increase those leads and get those leads early. I think one thing that also we haven't really been seeing lately is smoothie roaming. Last season, Smoothie was actually known for and actually kind of made a name for himself by making these really cheeky roams to the top lane to help out Impact and get him ahead and really help him out. But he hasn't really done that this season, which is kind of puzzling because that's what one of the things he was really good at. What do you guys think else that needs improvement in any aspect? You know, it could be drafting and who we give champions to. It could be income and where the gold goes. You know, it could be playstyles. It could be anything. I will say I don't think we need roster changes. I think the problems that we're seeing are as a unit and not as individually based. So I don't think we need to get rid of anybody. I think it's just a matter of we need to improve and just be better. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Roster changes after one bad weekend is never the
yeah,
correct
that would
thing.
just be
Like
ridiculous.
that'd be a terrible choice.
Oh
The
yeah,
team
totally.
looks the team still looks like a good team. They just looked worse than we expected them to. In terms of you mentioned draft specifically over this weekend, C9's drafts and specifically versus the TSM series. I want to really highlight that their drafts were not good. The entire series revolved around which team had the tank, and the team that had the tank on it won. And that really showed when TSM couldn't, like, there was a definitive point where C9 kind of got a hold of the game and turned it around. And that was when there was a big team fight where TSM had to funnel into C9's base to try and take an inhib. They do that, and then they get aced because they have no tank, and they were not coordinated enough to team fight without a tank. And the very next game, C9 does the exact same thing. They draft a comp with no tank, and they can't play it for shit because the Impact got so far behind that he was completely irrelevant for the entire game. And C9 didn't look super coordinated, and it just ended up falling apart, similar to how TSM did. And I just don't understand why you would draft a comp like that when it's so high risk, like medium reward. If you get ahead with it, okay, cool, you're ahead. But if the enemy team manages to stall the game out at all, the tank will almost always outscale the non-tank, especially with Rumble versus Shin. Rumble cannot 1v1 Shin in the late game. Shin just flat out wins that because Rumble doesn't deal that much damage to a tank, and Shin can just taunt off the ult. So it's really a matter of C9 needs to know the comps they can play and just play those because they obviously could not execute on the comp that they drafted.
I think also to play off that, they also need to know the play and drafting habits of the enemy team because Hanser is a really great tank player. You put him on something like Maokai, like Nautilus, like Shen, he's going to do really well for his team because he's a team player. He doesn't really care what he's doing in his lane. He knows that, alright, once we get the team fights, I'm going to be tanky enough to win. And to let Hanser have these really big playmaking tanks like Maokai or Shen, it seems like it kind of just skipped a beat there.
Yeah, especially with the new three bands or 5 bands, excuse me, that each team gets. You can target a specific player a lot more. You can either force TSM's hand in picking that tank early, thus giving you another power pick that you can choose from, or if they don't pick the tank early and they choose to go for something more mid lane focused or ADC focused, which we've seen a lot with the lethality focused picks such as Jhin, Varus, you really have the option of either completely banning him out and forcing him onto something that's not a tank, or using that leverage to get Jensen on something that he can carry on. So I really think there's just no excuse for that, at least at this point. Maybe in the first couple weeks, but at this point, there's no excuse.
Personally, I'm totally okay with drafting a Rumble into a Shen if you know what you're picking it into. The problem came from Impact just being totally incompetent on it, which he has shown he can play it sometimes. He's also had a couple games here and there where he's been absolute garbage, but the idea was to push him under tower so he can't go to his allies and stuff if he needs to, but we're not getting the vision, or we're not tracking junglers enough for him to be able to absorb that much pressure without dying, because he pushes up and then there's a jungler there to punish him every time. So I think it has more to do with a map planning, because I don't think there's anything wrong with picking a Rumble in a Shen, just because he pushes lane so hard before he gets a Tiamat, and even then he still pushes a lot harder, and he does have a really good team fighting ultimate that helps a lot. So I'm personally fine picking Rumble into Shen, and even in game 2, like, I don't think a Rumble was that much of a problem. Their throw came after that they blew a bunch of ultimates for no reason. That it was like a Rumble equalizer, Ash Arrow, and then a Zyra ult, and then they continued to walk in to a choke point after that. So that was where that problem came from. I think that if they would have backed off then, that they would have won that game. And so I don't think it's inherently wrong not to pick a tank. Maybe it would have been a more optimal, but I just don't think that we're getting enough a setup around the map to do enough of pushing lanes if we're not gonna help him out with wards and stuff. Like, I think when he got ganked a couple times, Impact had his trinket ward still. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
hoping that it's a lack of judgment or just a lack of being there at the time. But I do have some stuff to say about contracts when that rolls around.
And I really do think that I think you're right that picking Rumble into Shin is not inherently wrong, but for the way that C9 plays and the way that Impact plays, it is kind of wrong specifically for this instance, because like you said, Rumble pushes extremely hard and Impact likes to push extremely hard. That's how C9 has played for the past split. You saw it at World, you saw it in Summer Split. It was super oriented on Impact pushes, absorbs pressure, the jungler comes top, but Impact is so good at absorbing that pressure that he gets out because he's playing a tank who can absorb that pressure. And then Jensen is able to get ahead because all the pressure is off of him now. But when you're playing Rumble, Rumble has no escape. He has no HP, no armor, and it's extremely hard for him to absorb that pressure on a champion like Rumble. So I feel like it's the way that C9 plays is not suited for that pick. At least if you aren't planning on trying to somehow avoid that top pressure by tracking the jungler better or warding better, or like contracts coming and warding for Impact so he doesn't get ganked, all of that stuff. So I feel like specifically for C9, that wasn't the best idea. In general, yes, it may be okay, but for C9 specifically, I feel like it was not a good idea.
Yeah. All good points. I think one more topic I want to bring up before we move on, specifically looking at Sneaky. I think he's actually been performing, I think, to be expected, actually. Even on a very weakened role like AD carry, Sneaky's been very good. I think one thing to point out, though, is that Sneaky's play on Varus and Jhin is really weird. Like, if we put him on Varus, he just doesn't seem to do enough. And on Jhin, he's able to do more. And I want to know what your thoughts are on how we draft around Sneaky. And especially going into patches like 7.4, where they're starting to really nerf the armor penetration lethality items to make them more balanced.
I think that okay, so for Sneaky, at least from what it seems, his play has been, a lot of people have been criticizing him for not looking very good this split. And I agree with that. He hasn't looked up to the standards we've come to expect from him. We've expected nothing less than a top 2, maybe top 3 AD carry, because he's been that consistent. He's been that for 2-3 splits now. I think, and this is just me speculating, from what it looks like, the problem stems from him having borderline zero mobility, because Jin has zero mobility, but he has more range, and Varus has zero mobility and even less range than Jin. And so, as a result of this, we've seen Sneaky getting picked off a lot. Whereas before, I know that a lot of times which I know saying that is interesting because at Worlds he played Jin a lot, and he's been known as a very good Jin player, which I think still holds up. He's looked better on Jin than on Varus for sure. But now that Varus is more in the meta, we're seeing him get picked off by Ash arrows, by Maokai, by Shin, Nautilus, just stuff like that, being in a position where he should not be on an immobile AD carry like that. And so I don't know if it's just something that hasn't come up yet because Varus hasn't really been in the meta in the AD carry role for a really long time, or because Sneaky's just playing worse, but his main problem has just been being out of position.
Yeah, I will say as an AD carry main myself, when trying to switch over to like a new champion because it's meta, it's really hard to try to compensate because you've been used to playing certain champions like Caitlyn and Ashe and Sivir for so long. They play very distinctly. But then you go to Varus, who's like, well, you just have to throw out Qs all the time, just all the time throw out Qs. You know, it can be really difficult, I think, to adjust and adapt to a completely different playstyle than, you know, other AD carries that operate completely differently from Varus. So
Yeah.
I think that that's definitely an issue we could be seeing, and just him having to, he's just overcompensating because, you know, he's really good on things like Ashe and Jhin, and other champions like Lucian and Ezreal. I think he can open up and really do well on those. But with Varus, it's such an odd play style that's so different from a lot of other AD carries. I think that's why he has looked worse on Varus. Maybe that's also why we don't really see him on Misfortune, who is another really, really good AD carry.
Unless Hunini picks Cho'Gath again. Just adding some context onto it. So Sneaky's played 4 ADCs this split. I'm gonna take out Ezreal because he played it a one game. His lowest win rate in DPM is on Varus, and he's played 6 Varus games, which is the lowest of the other ADCs that he's played, which is Jhin with 11, Ashe with 7. But he's laning a lot better with Varus too. He's coming up with more with a higher CS and gold difference at 10. So I guess maybe that's a trade-off, is doing damage for laning. But I do agree with most of what you guys said. He just doesn't stick out as a Varus player to me.
Varus is a very much, especially with this lethality build now, he's very much focused on wave clear and just kind of poking and chunking down squishies, which is really different from how a lot of AD carries function in wanting to kind of just do decent damage throughout a team fight, either through like hurricane damage or spread out damage from like a Misfortune ultimate or a Jhin ultimate or something, you know, something like that, where it's kind of spread out and trying to hit as many people as possible.
Okay, we've been going on a while. We didn't get to touch on a lot of the things that we wanted to, so let's move on to that. I'll ignore all my contract stuff until next week.
Okay, that's fine. I guess we should talk about LCS as a whole. I guess since we are at a break, we are gonna have 2 weeks before the next batch of NA LCS matches started. So, what do you guys think of the NA LCS so far? Has there been any surprises? Has there been anything that's really expected?
I feel like NALCS has been a story of the top half of the teams look pretty decent, and the bottom half of the teams look like complete garbage.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I mean,
Liquid
especially is something that
Liquid,
I'm kind of
Envy,
surprised
Immortals have all been just massive failures on almost every front.
Did you hear the news that Liquid is like during IEM they're going to be trying out new players and they're thinking of even putting Piglet in mid lane to try to
Yeah.
compensate for the fact that Golden Glue is such a lead weight.
Yeah, like that team is a complete mess. Those three teams specifically are complete garbage tier. Dignitas has looked all right. They've looked shaky, but
They've been
they're like
improving ever
on
since
and
they moved
off.
Cop up to the head coach spot.
Yeah, they had a 2 a week with Cop, so that's good. Echo Fox has looked pretty all right. They've had their on and off weeks. It's like they're super inconsistent, but everyone else like P1, CLG, TSM, C9, FlyQuest have all looked pretty good. So it's really the story of like there's I guess not a definitive line. I think once you get past Echo Fox, you can start saying there might be a definitive line, but specifically for the bottom three teams, just complete and utter garbage. They're not good in almost any way. They have
Dignitas is bottom 3.
Dignitas is bottom 3. Wait, really? I thought it was
They're
Liquid,
tied for
Envy,
7th.
and then Immortals. Oh, they're tied with
Echo
Immortals
Fox
for
and
7?
Dig are no, Dig and Echo Fox are tied at 7th, then it's Envy, Liquid.
Oh, real? Huh. Okay, I thought that it was...
Immortals is 5 and 5. Tied
Yeah,
with
Immortals.
CLG.
is
Oh,
CLG.
wow. I thought that Immortals was... Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
They've won the games that they've had to win. Immortals
Okay.
has.
But yeah,
While Echo Fox hasn't.
I still feel like Immortals just doesn't... As many games as they've won, they still don't stand out to me as a good team. Because that team lives and dies by one thing, and that's Dardoch. Pobelter has not looked good, at all. He's looked so bad this season. For some reason, I don't know why. He's just looked terrible. And Dardoch, more than not, doesn't seem to have good games. So I feel like Immortals is teetering on the brink of completely falling apart and being a competent team.
I think the one thing Immortals has done well is they've won the games that they have to win, which is teams below them in the table. Which I think they've only lost one series to a team below them at this point, and it might have been Echo Fox.
Which
No,
Echo
I think
Fox...
They might have swept Echo Fox.
Yeah, Echo Fox is a team that is like, they look incredibly good and then just incredibly bad all within like a really short time period. So it's Echo Fox is the hardest team out of all these to judge, in my opinion, because they're the most inconsistent. When they look good, they look really good, but when they look bad, they look really bad. And so it's a situation that's extremely hard to put them into a specific slot when it comes to power rankings.
Who do you guys think was shifting to the top tier teams, or I guess the second half of the teams? Who do you think wins the split for this season? Out of all, like right now, if you were going to say, not even caring about the rest of the games that need to be played, if like right now, who do you think would win?
Ooh.
I would say TSM versus either Cloud9 or FlyQuest in the finals.
If it was right now...
Oh, the playoffs?
Yeah.
Like if you took the teams right now with how they look and put them into playoff bracket, I think it would end up with TSM versus either FlyQuest or C9. Just because of the week.
Phoenix 1.
Yeah, Phoenix 1 would be in contention for that as well. It depends on which C9 we see, I guess.
Yeah,
if we see the
that's a very good
C9 that
point.
played this week, or if we see the C9 that we've seen every other week. So it's a really hard thing to decide right now.
So who do you guys think is gonna make playoffs at this point?
I would say probably us, TSM, FlyQuest, Phoenix 1. The top 4 teams right now. And then to add 2 more, I would probably say Echo Fox and CLG.
That would be my guess. If there is one thing that I would have to dispute, it'd be maybe Echo Fox, Immortals instead of Echo Fox. I think you could really sub out any of like Dig, Immortals, Echo Fox for that last spot. It really
It's a
depends
real
on
toss-up.
how Echo Fox just looks. If they can get their shit together, or if they can continue being just this incredibly inconsistent team.
I agree with you guys. I don't think a CLG spot is totally set in stone either if Dig keeps improving, but the top four I think are pretty obvious at this point. Par, someone completely collapsing. How about for relegations?
I think Team Liquid and
Envy
Envy,
and Liquid.
the way that both of those teams have been playing lately, I don't really see them doing a whole lot in the second half of the season. I think one of them is going to ultimately crash and burn, and I'm not sure if any of the challenger teams right now could beat them for their spot, but I think they're definitely going to be taking place in the tournament.
Yeah, if Envy, I think, is almost a done deal at this point. They look really bad, and they don't show any signs of improving. Liquid, on the other hand, it really hinges on, can they get anything working? If they get any kind of shimmer of hope, just something like switching Piglet to mid, if that somehow works and wins them like 4 games for the rest of the split, then maybe they avoid relegations. Maybe. But that's the only way I see Liquid not being in the relegation tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. If you could award MVP to someone, who would it be?
For like the entire LCS?
Wait. Oh, we have a couple questions.
Oh yes, we finally got questions.
And
Yay.
in one of them is actually relevant to who is MVP. Okay, so Soul Rune Slayer said, who do you think has been the most influential player so far? So we'll do that for LCS and for Cloud9. So, Ian, start back.
Okay, I'll start with Cloud9. For Cloud9, it'd be between Contracts and Jensen. I want to say that Jensen has been really influential just because he's been the most consistent out of anyone on C9. I don't think there's ever been a series where he's played really bad, where everyone else has been slightly up or down, depending on which series you look at. So I'll say Jensen for C9. I could totally see an argument for Contracts, though. In all of LCS, that's a really hard question. Man, I'm super tempted to say that Acadian has looked outstanding, and that if he was on any other top 4 team, he would definitely, like, undoubtedly be the MVP. But just the fact that he's on Echo Fox and that he's lost those games due to the rest of his team not being quite as good, I kind of want to say that, but I also want to say, man, Haunter's been having a really good season, or at least the last few weeks he's been looking really, really good. So it's I'll have to say Acadian. I think that dude has showed up above and beyond what everyone thought he was going to look like. So I'll go with Acadian for that.
I called Acadian being a boss. So, sorry.
Yeah, he's definitely looked like rookie of the split for sure.
Alright, Havokpus. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would say, I'm actually going to say Smoothie is the most influential player on Cloud9.
Thank you.
Because when you listen to the comms, when you listen to, especially during team fights, Smoothie is such a dominant voice, and he's so focused and really really clear at what he needs the team to do, and the team follows it. He's just a really good, leading voice, and he has such good leadership qualities. He's so focused. I don't think he rarely tilts. He's just this big rock, and we can all get behind Smoothie. And I want everyone to recognize Smoothie because he's just the best, you guys. I'm such a big fan of him.
I can agree with that.
As for all of LCS, I'd probably say Acadian. I could see Jensen winning MVP, of this split because he's really been trying and really trying to put himself at a notch higher than he was last year. So we could definitely see Jensen winning MVP. Haunter is another good one. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind, I think. MVP is a toss-up, really. There have been a lot of really good performers, I think, this year. So
You guys are forgetting two big MVP candidates, I think, especially after this past week. The first one is Arrow from Phoenix One.
I was thinking Arrow. Like that was in the back of my mind. He's been super good. I think it's just everyone expected that from him in the first place,
yeah,
Well, yeah.
which isn't a bad thing. It's just Acadian has been much more of a, like, you think of,
All-star.
yeah, it's like he's really, he stands out above everyone else. Whereas Arrow, there's also Stixay, there's also Sneaky if he's playing well. So it's like Acadian's like almost in a league of his own.
I'm also gonna add in High as a possibility.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that.
See, there's so many people. It's really hard to nail down who exactly will win.
I mean, if I'd award it to someone right now, it's probably Haunter though. But my Cloud9 most influential player is easily Smoothie, unless you wanted to talk about having the most negative influence, which I won't go into. But we also have another question
Oh,
from
can I read it?
C9 Perfect.
I want to read
Yes.
it. Yay. So since TSM beat the top two teams, what do you predict as of now? What will happen if TSM and C9 play in the finals? Last summer, it was more obvious C9 was going to lose, but we still had a slim chance, maybe like 60-40. Now, what do you see as of now? Is it 50-50? Is it where do you guys think? Answer the question.
Okay, based on what we've seen these past 2 weeks, I would say that it would probably be 70-30 TSM, maybe a 60-40, because while TSM beat us, they did throw that massive goal lead in game 2. So there are exploitations we can make. I think it's hard to tell just because we had such a quick collapse. So we're really gonna have to see how we perform against Echo Fox and FlyQuest next, not this week, but the first weekend of March, before we can say who's the better team.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think if we see the C9 that we've seen for every week, not including the most recent one, I would say that it could go 50-50. If we see the C9 that showed up in the week that we just saw, I would probably say I would agree with Frozen, somewhere in the realm of 60-40 in favor of TSM, maybe more like 65-35 in favor of TSM. But yeah, the games didn't look unwinnable. It just looked like C9 was always like a half step behind TSM. So I think that's how it would turn out if we took it as it is right now. A lot can change in the course of the next few weeks, though. So I'm really excited to see how things change, and what teams really adapt, and what teams start to fall behind.
Yeah, I agree. 60-40 is probably the best answer. I think 2 weeks is a lot of practice time. I think it's a lot of time to really lock down where you're kind of messing up at and where you need to improve, and then kind of work on that. And C9 isn't some dumb rinky-dink operation. We have Reaper, we have these all-star caliber players here. So it's not like we're trying to train a bunch of bronze players to do better. So I think we all know what's going wrong, and I think the team will be able to fix that. I think it's just they need time. They need time to de-stress. They need time to kind of loosen back up and not, be so worried about winning, especially now that the streak is broken. Now that the streak's broken, we have a lot less stress to worry about because we lost already. It's done. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So now I think we just need to focus on getting better and have our eyes set on playoffs and performing in playoffs. Those are my final thoughts.
Yeah, that O2 week couldn't have happened at a better time. So there's always a silver lining, I guess.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
agree.
let's move on to our moment of the week. Havokpus, what's yours?
Mine is G2 lull. Just I have to go with the meme. Just every single time they go to an international competition, they just
It's
crash and
magic.
burn. It's so
They
great.
shit the bed.
You just can't write comedy like that. It's just great. What is yours, Frozencreek? What's your moment of the week?
I've been thinking about it for 2 hours now, and I can't really think of one. My best one, I guess, is okay. I have two now. The first one was how this was gonna be a short episode, and it's actually like twice as long as normal. Second, Unicorns winning their first match against Kongdu and beating the Koreans at a macro game, and it was really clean too. So that was good. All right, Ian, what's yours?
Oof.
Oh, and beating Trey in fantasy. Okay, sorry.
For me, oh man, moment of the week. Oh, all right. My moment of the week is my weekend, which basically consisted of me waking up, taking a shower, getting back into bed, and then spending the entire day just on my laptop because I had been working like super hard the past few weeks. I had been incredibly busy, and this weekend I was just like, I'm done. I'm taking a mental vacation for this 2 days, and I just completely did absolutely nothing, and it was fantastic, and I felt fucking great.
Took a good old G2 there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's sometimes that's all you need, man. It's good for you. Good for you that you got that vacation in there. I
The classic
If only
G2.
yeah, if only you could be in Poland instead.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, wrap us up.
All right, yeah, we've dragged on long enough. We've ranted, we've rambled. Hopefully, we've said some insightful things about Cloud9 that you enjoyed. So, thank you for listening to the 26th episode of Body, the Cloud9 Fancast.
You're welcome.
Feel free to tweet questions and feedback to @C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. Special thanks to Soul
Rip.
Rune Slayer and
C9 perfect.
thank you and C9 Perfect for asking some questions. We really appreciate it, you guys. And yeah, we will answer questions. It does not actually have to be Cloud9 related even. You could just ask questions about us, about ourselves. Anything you want to know to spice up the episode.
Oh,
If you're
dude,
curious,
give us those spicy questions.
I want the spicy memes.
I know you're curious. Havokpus has a super hot girlfriend.
Ooh.
Her name is Left and last name Hand.
Ha! Are
Air
you sure?
horns. Where are the air
Are you
horns?
sure it's not Are you sure it's not some Japanese name, and then printed onto a body pillow?
Oh man, if only I had enough cash to get one of those. Those things look comfy
Dude, hell yeah.
and attractive.
If only.
And interactive.
I said attractive. But
Oh, I thought you said interactive. I was like, oh, that
I
took
mean,
a
the
turn.
really pricey ones are if you want to get into it. Anyway,
Oh man,
thanks for listening.
what a way to end
Alright.
the episode.
Yeah, that's great. Just what the listeners want: quality body pillow talk.
Dude, send us those spicy personal questions about our
Yeah, send us the
our
questions.
own like each of us. Give us each our own personal spicy question to answer, just for you.
All right, thanks for listening. Say goodbye, everybody. I think we should just put a stop to this one now.
All right, bye everyone. It was fun.
Goodbye.